Oh, hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. Now, recently on my YouTube channel, I've paid a little bit more attention to mechanical clocks and shown a little bit more appreciation for them. And in the process of thinking about mechanical clocks, I started thinking about something like this, the grandfather clock. It's kind of the pinnacle of great mechanical timepieces that also are, great things to have around the house. Just elegant looking, fine craftsmanship. It's got everything going for it. And most of the time, they are mechanical. And I thought, ever since the 1970s, the late 70s, I've probably been aware of grandfather clocks and always thought that would be a really neat thing to have someday. And the danger with that is someday is kind of this thing that never quite happens with some of these things. Now, to me though, as a kid, of course, it was difficult to say, hey everybody, let's buy me a grandfather clock. Okay, so there are basically three things that make it difficult to get a grandfather clock. Well, first is the price. They're not cheap. Second would be, you got to make space for it. You got to make sure it has a spot. And then I think the third thing is, if you anticipate moving, then you have to worry about what are you going to do with it when you move. It's difficult to move around. So if you can mitigate those three things, there's really no downside to having a grandfather clock. Maybe, if you want to be a really good steward and really take good care of your grandfather clock, you should probably have it professionally serviced every 3 to 5 years. I've heard, I think 3 years seems like overkill, but with something mechanical like this, you want to make sure that the mechanical parts of it are sound. Things that are supposed to be tight are tight. Things that are supposed to be loose are loose. It's clean in there. It's got the proper lubrication. Keep this thing running for decade after decade if you take good care of it. So a professional who really knows what they're doing, not a bad idea on a regular basis. So anyway, recently thinking about mechanical clocks and thinking about a grandfather clock, I realized, what can I do to make this happen for me after all these years of thinking about it and not really taking that seriously? And what I figured out was, well, I can make the space for it. I don't expect to move. And so what can I do to make the price right? And I thought of something I just hadn't really considered before. It was, look for it in the classified ads. Now around here in Utah, KSL Classifieds is kind of the de facto, that's where everybody goes to look up classified ads. Craigslist just really doesn't have the presence of KSL Classifieds. So I looked at KSL Classifieds and I was surprised to see some grandfather clocks that were, quite a bit cheaper than a brand new one. And, they looked like they were pretty good. But as I got looking around, and there were some for less than $500. Now some of them looked like they were kind of old and beat up. Some of them looked like they didn't have quite all of the features and functions that I really like in a grandfather clock. And eventually I zeroed on this one, which was significantly less than buying a brand new one. And I got looking at it, the listing. I was able to contact the owner, and I realized they've taken really good care of this thing. It's older. The owner thought it was maybe at least 15 years old. I talked to a clock repair guy just casually, and he thought it was maybe closer to 20 or 30 years old. And I got to say, if it's that old, it's in exceptional condition, and really remarkable how well the previous owner took care of it. Previous owner was kind of a clock nut, and the only reason they got rid of this or decided to sell it to me was they redecorated their entire house, and it just didn't go with any of the decor that they had, and they bought a new grandfather clock that went well with what they had. Couldn't find anyone that really wanted this within the circle of people they knew. Put it on the classified ads. I found it. I was very happy to buy it from them. They were very happy that it went to someone who could appreciate clocks, and that's why I'm looking at this now. This is my clock, and I featured it a few, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago in a video that I made where I just kind of demonstrated the chimes on this clock. But here it is, and yes, it is mine. So if you were wondering, well, what was that clock he just showed the other day? This is my clock now. And so it's really in exceptional condition. Just, you know, one of the big things about grandfather clocks is the woodworking. And this one, this color is a little bit different than what you would normally see. A lot of the grandfather clocks have the darker stain on there. This one just unique. I liked it. Got some carving in the in the case there. I mean, some of them they get really elaborate, and then you start to pay a premium for that elaborate woodworking. Maybe inlaid woods, different types of woods, different types of finishes, different, maybe some metal pieces in there to accent it all, and maybe etched glass. And there can be many things that would drive up the price of a grandfather clock. This one, it was just a perfect fit for me. I like the color, not too fancy, but not too plain. It's got the cables to hold the weights, and that's another thing that kind of differentiates some of the more expensive models from the cheaper models, is if you have cables holding the weights instead of chains holding the weights. And it's got a moving moon dial. Sometimes on these, the moon dial is just decoration, some of the less expensive ones and smaller ones. But this one actually has a moving moon dial to show you the phase of the moon. This has the triple chimes, so you can choose whether you want the traditional Westminster chimes that sound like this, or also something called St. Michael's chimes. It's a different tune, or the Whittington chime. So you've got the choices there. And I have to admit, I did modify this clock just a little bit. Nothing permanent. I didn't drill any holes or put any screws in it or anything. But what I did is I took, I found a mirror. It didn't come with a mirror, and I just put a mirror in the back of it, and it's kind of propped it up there. I can take that out and restore it to the way it was in just a matter of seconds, really, if I wanted to. And also, I enhanced the lighting down here because it had a light down in the very bottom that shined up at these pretty, brass pieces here. And so I just got some LED strips and added them in there to make it even more flashy and sparkly. But again, I could easily take those out and be right back where it was. But I kind of like it this way. The kids like it, the wife likes it. And well, anyway, that's why I finally bought a grandfather clock. Now, traditionally, for the last, I don't know, since the 1870s or so, it's been kind of popular, the name, to call it a grandfather clock. However, if you want to be more precise, sometimes they call them floor clocks these days. I wasn't aware of that until just recently, that floor clock is kind of a more generic term for this style of clock. I don't think that has anything to do with, political correctness or, gender neutrality or something like that. It's just that floor clock kind of describes what it is. And I suppose if you spoke a different language than English, it doesn't make sense. Why do you call it a grandfather clock? What's that? But floor clock, because you have a wall clock, you've got, a mantle clock, a desktop clock, you got all these things. Why not just call it a floor clock? I will probably still call it a grandfather clock, right? But if you look on Wikipedia, long case clock is another kind of generic term for this style of clock. I'll tell you about one more thing. This has the rods there for the hourly chime and the melodies. If you want to go more expensive, a real premium price to pay, you can find these floor clocks where the movement, instead of using these rods for the musical part of it, has tubular chimes. They're very musical, and they're also very expensive, but they look cool, nice chrome chimes, and these tube chimes and stuff. Very musical. But again, maybe that'll be, this is my starter clock, okay? So pretty soon I'll be moving up maybe to the really fancy, very expensive tubular chime clocks. But this one, just great for now. And so there you go. Now, it's mechanical, so therefore, it doesn't keep absolutely perfect time, but I got to tell you, you can make adjustments. And this thing is probably about as accurate as, an average low-end quartz watch at this point. I've got it down to where it's accurate to within probably a second a day. Maybe 5 seconds a week, really. So not bad at all. And you can make that adjustment by turning a little nut down at the bottom of the weight there on the pendulum. So if the weight is down lower, pendulum will swing slower. If it's higher, it will swing at a higher speed. And that's how you keep this thing accurate. And once you've dialed that in, really just wind it once a week or so, because it's an 8-day movement, and not bad. But right now I've got it set so it runs a little bit fast. So at the end of a week, if I think, wow, it's about 5 seconds fast, all I have to do is stop the pendulum for 5 seconds and restart it, and I'm back on my way. And I kind of like that. I'll see. If I get tired of that, I'll try and see if I can get it just a little bit more accurate. But okay, this is my first grandfather clock. I don't know if there will be another one coming soon. You know that if this is Howard Miller, right? But if Casio made this, then life would be something like this. Well, hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. Today, I wanted to show you my new Casio grandfather clock. Now, as you know, they make these in a variety of colors and styles, and I've already collected about 85% of what they sell. But in this particular case, I really liked this one, and I found a great bargain on one just like it, and that's why I have the duplicate right over there. Now, you're probably wondering, how in the world did I get them to be synchronized so precisely? And actually, it's pretty simple when you use Casio's atomic pendulums. Anyhow, maybe someday I'll have to, if there's anyone at Casio listening to this, atomic pendulum, I think you should pursue that over at Casio. That would just change the world. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and I'll tell you what, if you've been thinking about something like this, check the classified ads. Be a little bit picky, get what you want, insist on something that's been well maintained, and see what you can do, because someday is too far away. See what you can do now, and maybe you'll be fortunate enough to say, hey, I just found something that suddenly really fits, and now it's a part of my home. All right, well, that's all for now, and I hope you will join me soon. I'm going to go in depth and tell you everything I know about this specific Howard Miller clock. That's another video coming up very soon.